Hey you guys, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my November wrap-up. So here we are, December 8th, so it's a little earlier in the game, so kudos to me. But you know, like I said, I got sick, so I had to play a little bit of catch-up, and I'm still playing catch-up because I wanted to have another video out the beginning of December, which I couldn't do because I couldn't finish it. But before I get into any more rambling, here are kind of the books I read in November, and despite my being sick and being unnaturally stressed, I managed to read a total of 6 books, which, you know, I want it to be larger than 6, but, you know, we're going to kind of make do with what we have and kind of go off with that. But without further ado, let's jump right in the video. So the first book on this list is one that I started really early in November, and I did a series review on it before I found out that there's going to be more in the series. So I'm just going to link it in the cards above and down below for you guys to check out later or right now. But I'm a little disappointed I decided to do a series review on it because I thought it was the last part of the book, but it's not. So here we are, and it's very upsetting because I spent all that time sobbing over these characters that I probably wasn't going to see any more of, and here we are, learning that we're going to see more of them. But that book is A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. Now, if you guys don't know, this is supposed to be the last, quote-unquote, the last, but there's something coming out in 2018. The last series of A Court of Thorns and Roses, and it's supposed to wrap up all the stuff that's happened. And let me tell you, this was an unnatural roller coaster ride of emotions that I did not need in the beginning of November. I honestly thought it was going to be like somewhat bittersweet kind of ending. No, it was a really happy ending, but I was sobbing. Like, Sarah J. Maas's writing is just beautiful, and I love it so much, and her characters are so vibrant, even the minor ones. And I don't know. It's just, how can you, like, not like this series? It has fairies, and it's kind of smutty, and the romance is great and not at all toxic, at least until when we get to the actual blunt of, like, the meat of the romances, and, like, the characters all support each other no matter what, and it's just, 10 out of 10 would definitely recommend, and I would recommend that you guys go ahead and pick this up, or actually pick up A Court of Thorns and Roses, read all 3 books, and then when A Court of Frost and Blood comes out, you'll be ready. But other than that, I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. And if you guys want to see more in-depth thoughts on my entire series review or my thoughts on the 3 books, I will go ahead. Like I said, I'll leave it in the cards above and the link down below. The next book on this list is probably a book I should have read a lot earlier, considering I've had it for probably 6 months. Maybe less. I'm kind of praying it's been less than 6 months, but I don't know anymore. I don't know anymore. But that is Blue Lily, Lily Blue by Maggie Stiefvater. Now, this is the 3rd book in the Raven Cycle series, and this is I can't give too much without spoiling everything that happened in the previous book. But all you have to know is that it's the 3rd book, and it is more of an emotional roller coaster than the rest of the first 2 books combined. Well, actually, Dream Thieves was also pretty much an emotional roller coaster, but this was even more of an emotional roller coaster. But I would definitely suggest to read it. Maggie Stiefvater's writing style is so poetic. Her characters just leap off the page, as corny as that sounds. And you really won't be disappointed in what are you doing? First you meow. Now you're going to have to say hi to the camera. It's not going to steal your soul. Go. Go, go, go. But like I said, you guys won't be disappointed with this book, and I'm really excited to pick up the 4th book, and hopefully I won't procrastinate as much as I did with the first 3 books. Because it was it was a long procrastination, let's just face it. Oh, and I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. So the next book on this list is a book that I'm kind of disappointed in. I had such high hopes for it because this was kind of my first LGBTQIA contemporary read of ever. Most of the ones I've done have been fantasy, YA, urban fantasy, and all that stuff. So this has kind of been my first one, and this was not one I should have started. I got really excited because it involved lesbians, but it just turned out to be kind of a downer. Like, not a downer, it was just a big disappointment. And I'll leave the review down below, like my more in-depth review down below and in the cards. But that is Keeping You a Secret by Julie Ann Peters. And this story follows this novel follows a girl named Holland who is just kind of figuring out her sexuality and kind of falling in love and realizing that, hey, maybe she's not straight. Which like I said, I had such high hopes because the beginning sounded interesting, the characters seemed to be really compelling, and like I said in my review, I understand this was written at a different time, like 2007, 2003ish. So it's not as like LGBT wasn't like the community wasn't as welcomed back then, which I appreciated that they kept true to that. However, I think that Holland and Cece's direction towards it, like their thoughts towards what they were doing, or like, I don't want to, how to say, their motivation and their thoughts throughout the entire story were kind of immature, and they're high school seniors, so I get that there's some immaturity there, but like some high school seniors are pretty wise beyond their years, and I thought that for someone such as Cece who was going to be facing adversity and had faced it for so long, she would have been a little more mature about the situation, and Holland would have been mature as well, considering how she was defined in the rest of her, like, throughout her friends. So this was very disappointing, and I gave it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. And I was being generous with that rating. The next book on this list is a book that I had bought 2-ish, almost 3 years ago. I studied abroad in Ireland over the summer, and for those of you who don't know, that was a very life-changing experience for me. I recommend studying abroad to everyone who is able to. However, I bought these 2 books while I was there, and I wasn't quite ready to put Ireland away in my head when I came home or read these books while I was there. And now here I am 2 years later, kind of reading these books and figuring out, no, I don't want to say figuring it out, but kind of reliving the experience of like the kind of the mythology and the culture around Ireland and how magical it was. But like I said, I finally read these books, and that is the book of Fairy and Folk Tales of Ireland, which is compiled by W.B. Yeats. Now, this book has a lot of different like folk tales and fairy tales, a lot of like weird sing-songy moments, like some poetry, some like actual folklore, some information on it, and some actual like stories. And I absolutely adored this book. It just made me realize how much I miss Ireland and the culture and the people and kind of like the mythology behind everything. And I also, why is the sticker still on here? And also, I am also writing books about fairies and kind of that form of aspect. So to be able to go through and read about Ireland, where fairies kind of came from, or like where some of the bulk of the fairy stories came from, is very bittersweet to me because I really miss Ireland. But like I said, I enjoyed this book, and if it wasn't for the fact that like the only difficulty that I had that kind of knocked me back a couple of times was that I thought there was going to be there was a lot of random poetry in here, and not poetry, but like, yeah, definitely poetry. And I'm not a huge poetry fan. I like my prose a bit more. So I was expecting to be a bit more prose heavy, but it's more like poetry heavy or folktale heavy. I don't remember the exact terminology for it. But other than that, I give this a 3 out of 5 stars. And if you're looking to pick up some kind of like the folk tales of Ireland, I highly recommend this book. The second to last book on this list is a book that I'm actually in love with in terms of like the movie. I watched the movie before the book, don't judge me. I didn't even know it was a book until I watched the movie. But that is Love, Rosie by Cecilia Ahern. Now, for those of you guys who don't know what this book is about, this book is about Rosie and Alex, and they're best friends growing up, and only by like chance does Alex end up moving away. And it's like this love story where they just kind of keep missing each other. They keep like they know they're desperately in love with one another, but they keep missing one another because they don't think the other one's perfect for them, or like they're happy without the other, like romantically. And they end up marrying other people and having like all this other stuff that's just kind of a mess, which is it's a mess. Let me just leave it there. But I absolutely adore this book. I think it was such a cute, funny read. It was also a quick read because it's not told in prose, but in mixed media, like text messages and letters and IMs. So this was such a fun book to read. And if it wasn't like, the only downside that I had to this book was that towards the end it got a little clunky in terms of what was going on, and sometimes you had a hard time figuring out, oh, wait, are they together, or who's together, what's going on, are they friends? It was a little clunky to me. That was kind of my biggest issue. But other than that, I rated it a 3.75 out of 5 stars, and this definitely is making me want to watch the movie, but I don't think I'm in the mood to start sobbing on a Friday night. You feel? Yeah. So the last book that I read this month is actually a book that I'm really happy I decided to pick up this month. This is one of my sister's favorite series. She loves the movies, she loves the books, and thankfully the books are far different from the movies, as in terms of it's a continuation of the books and the movies. So it'd be book 1, movie 1, book 1, movie 1, book 2, movie 2, and then book 3. So I need to pick up the rest. But this is a middle grade novel, I believe. It feels like a middle grade novel. Is it a middle? Would this count as YA? It's just a Disney movie. It's a Disney movie, and I don't know if it's YA or if it's a middle grade novel or not. But we'll find out. But that is Isle of the Lost by Melissa de la Cruz. Now, Melissa de la Cruz is also known for kind of writing more YA vampire stuff. So this is kind of, I believe, one of her first books for Disney. I don't want to say that it is. But if you don't know, this follows 20 years after the United States of Oregon, or aka the USA, finds a way to lump up all the villains and the sidekicks of every Disney movie and throw them into the Isle of the Lost. In 20 years, we are meeting their children, the children of Maleficent, Evil Queen, Cruella de Vil, and Jafar, and kind of where are they now and how their children are. And we're also meeting the Belle and Beast's son from Oregon, whose name is Ben Beast. He's a precious child. And this was such a fun read. Let me tell you, this is probably one of the darker Disney stories I've ever seen and heard about. And that's coming from me, who likes a lot of dark readings. This is one of the darkest, because the movie makes it a little more comedic, makes it more childlike. This one is really dark, and you get to see kind of what will happen if the villains had kids. And it's not lovey-dovey, it's not warm and fuzzy. They didn't change for their children. They just stayed the same and tried to raise them that way to become mini versions of themselves. And it's really heartbreaking to see these kids try to grow up this way and form themselves around this idea of what they should be because of their parents. And I really enjoyed this book. I have a lot of feels, and I've been listening to Descendants 2 soundtrack on repeat on Spotify, and forcing my sister to rewatch the second movie with me. But she loves the movies, so she's not really complaining that much. But other than that, I give this a 4 out of 5 stars. The only downside for me was that sometimes it got a little corny, but that's also Disney. So it can't go too far with corniness without, you're going to get corny regardless of what you do. But that was my only downside to it. But other than that, I definitely enjoyed this book, and I would recommend it if you're looking to look at the movie. And the movies are pretty great. The soundtrack for the second movie is one of my favorite ones. Hands down. The casting's amazing. You just can't go wrong. You have Dove Cameron, Sophia Carson, Boo Boo Stewart to relive your Twilight love. Cameron Boyce, who has grown up so nicely in terms of as a human, because he was pretty cute as a kid anyways. So but that is it for my November wrap up. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did reading these books. I'm hoping in December I'll read a ton, this month, it's already December, I'll read a ton more. Here's to hoping, because I get done with finals on the 20th, which means I get a lot of room to read. But other than that, I will see you guys in my next video on Tuesday. Hope you guys have a good weekend. Bye.